At dusk the four friends arrived at the edge of Blackwood Forest, their breath trailing mist, as Anna scanned the twisted silhouettes of ancient pines overhead. Marcus tightened his backpack straps, boots sinking into damp earth, while Layla whispered, "We've been walking for hours. What if the trail disappears?" Sam shivered, voice barely audible, saying, "I'd rather be home." None of them noticed how the shadows seemed to shift behind the trunks, as though responding to their fear. The storyteller observes their eager excitement thin to creeping dread, the half-packed tents waiting under a blood-orange sky. Anna flicked on her flashlight, its beam cutting through gathering gloom like a lifeline, illuminating gnarled roots that writhed across the path. Each heartbeat echoed in the stillness, as an unseen wind sighed through the canopy above, carrying the faintest echo of laughter. Or perhaps something else. Unspoken between them was a tension that felt alive, as if the forest itself awaited their next step with predatory patience. Far above, a single crow cawed, its harsh cry ripping the tranquility as though marking the beginning of something terrible. At last the group reached a small clearing, ringed by stunted pines and knotted boulders, Anna kneeling to test the soft loam beneath her palm. Marcus surveyed the area, voice steadied despite the flutter in his chest, saying, "This clearing looks perfect for the tents." Layla helped Sam uncoil tent poles, whispering, "I swear I heard something rustling back there." Sam paused, flashlight skewed toward the tree line, voice taut as he replied, "Probably just a deer or raccoon. We're miles from civilization." The narrator notes their hands moved with practiced rhythm as tent fabric strained in the dusk breeze, the orange glow at the horizon sinking fast. A faint snapping echoed somewhere beyond the tree line, prompting Anna to freeze mid-knot, heart hammering as the wind carried a distant, unrecognizable bark or laughter. A shiver crawled through the group as Marcus's boot scraped against hidden underbrush, sending up a swirl of dust motes in the dying light. Unseen eyes seemed to watch from between gnarled trunks, with an unnatural stillness, as patience coiled like a predator waiting to pounce. Late that night, the four huddled around a flickering campfire that threw dizzying circles of light onto charred rocks and dancing smoke curling toward the velvet sky. Anna leaned forward, voice low, saying, "Remember the legend of the forest wraith?" Marcus added, "They say it steals your voice before you scream." Layla let out a nervous laugh, tossing a pine cone into the flames as sparks drifted heavenward, whispering, "I'm not afraid of old stories." Sam slapped his thigh, grin wide, "I'll bet nothing's out there deeper in those trees." The narrator notes how their laughter echoed off silent trunks, defying the hush of midnight, until a sudden twig snap sliced through the air. Heads whipped toward the tree line as the firelight wavered, Layla's heart pounding in her throat. Anna's flashlight swept gymnastic arcs across gnarled bark, where nothing moved but shadow, tension tightening like a noose around their chests. Above them, constellations watched in cold indifference as the forest exhaled a gust that blew out half the embers, plunging them into unstable darkness. In the trembling aftermath of the fire's sputter, Layla sat bolt upright, every nerve alight, whispering, "Do you hear that?" Her voice cracked as a hushed murmur answered from beyond the firelight, a voice tinged with sorrow calling her name. Marcus froze, eyes narrowing as he peered into the inky tree line, murmuring, "What trick of the wind is that?" Anna reached for his arm, countering, "Stay here, Layla, don't go." But Layla's curiosity flared brighter than fear. She slipped to her feet, flashlight in hand, voice firm yet shaking as she said, "I need to see." The narrator describes her footsteps sounding muffled on fallen pine needles as she crossed the clearing, heart thumping in time with distant pulses of unseen energy. Each glint of her beam revealed trembling foliage that seemed to recoil, then surge forward. Branches swayed though the air was still, and the forest exhaled a low, resonant hum that vibrated through her bones. Behind her, the campfire guttered as a jagged silhouette flickered at the tree line's edge, vanishing before any friend could react. Daybreak had not yet come when Marcus stumbled from his tent, voice urgent as he called, "Guys, get up, look at this?" Anna rubbed sleep from her eyes, squinting at a circle of small muddy footprints that encircled their campsite. Layla knelt to inspect the tracks, muttering, "They're too uniform to be animal," and they all lead toward the creek. Sam shivered despite the chill, asking, "Why would someone, or something, walk all the way out here?" The narrator details how dew-slick grass glistened under pre-dawn light, the footprints forming an eerie ritualistic ring before trailing off into dense brush. Marcus traced one print with his finger, brow furrowed as he said, "It stops right here." A distant rippling sound drew their gaze to the slow-moving creek, its murky water reflecting gnarled branches. Anna swallowed hard, voice trembling. "Do you think it came out of the water?" The storyteller notes the air felt charged, as if the forest, sated by its nocturnal hunt, watched them recoil in mounting horror at nature's unanswered questions. Determined not to be cowed by the footprints, Anna led the others through swirling mist toward the creek's edge, where water moaned against gnarled roots. Marcus pointed to dark stains on the muddy bank and said, "This looks like blood." Layla's breath caught as she knelt to inspect crushed reeds, whispering, "No animal track matches this pattern." Sam aimed his flashlight across the rippling current, voice strained, "We should mark this and head back." Anna shook her head, pressing a finger to the stain, saying, "We need answers no matter how nasty." The narrator observes how the forest seemed to close in around them, each swell of water echoing unheard footsteps. Moonlight shimmering off the creek cast trembling reflections on slick stones, where something had carved shallow grooves. Their pulse quickened as a sudden splash on the far bank snapped their heads around, flashlight beams stabbing into blackness. A lone silhouette flickered behind moss-draped trunks as the wind sighed through reeds, carrying a low hum like distant chanting. None of them spoke as icy dread coiled in their chests, but in unspoken glances, resolve and terror intertwined. Following the stains trail along the creek bank, Marcus tripped over a protruding stake of weathered wood, its surface etched with jagged symbols. Anna knelt to brush away moss, murmuring, "These carvings, they look intentional." Layla peered over her shoulder, lips parted in shock, saying, "It's like some twisted ritual." Sam held his breath as a cold breeze swept down the channel, carrying the distant clang of metal. The narrator describes how the stake leaned at a grotesque angle, spikes of dried sap glinting in the moonlight. Anna traced the symbols with trembling fingertip, voice hushed. Whoever did this wanted to send a message. Marcus shivered despite his jacket, replying, "Well, they sure got our attention." Shadows flickered across the creek as fireflies drifted through the gloom, their tiny lights dancing like warning beacons. The forest fell unnaturally silent, and even the water's whisper seemed to recoil from that carved wood. In that moment, the group realized they had crossed from curiosity into trespass, and something watched them with patient hunger. Driven by equal parts fear and fascination, Anna urged the group deeper along the creek as dawn's violet glow just kissed the horizon. Soon they stumbled upon a clearing that held an abandoned campsite, a rusted lantern half buried in leaves, a torn tarp flapping like a wounded creature. Layla ran a gloved hand over blackened stones, whispering, "This isn't ours." Sam raised his flashlight to reveal half-rotted tent poles and scattered cooking utensils, voice tight as he said, "Someone was here recently, then vanished." The narrator notes how the morning mist curled through charred embers, and the stale scent of smoke lingered oppressive. Marcus scanned the perimeter, voice low, "We should document this and get help." Anna shook her head, spine rigid, replying, "No phone signal. We keep going until we find answers." A sudden rustle in the underbrush halted them, hearts hammering as the wind carried a soft, mournful whistle. Their flashlights converged on an overturned cooler laced with dried droplets, and the forest seemed to watch with conspiratorial silence, daring them to intrude further. Pushing past fallen logs, the four entered a hollow ringed by ancient oaks, draped in hanging moss, where a makeshift shrine stood at its center. Bone fragments skewered on branches and tied with fraying rope. Layla exhaled sharply, backing away as she said, "This is a warning, or an offering." Marcus stepped forward, voice uneasy. "It feels wrong." Anna circled the shrine, eyes locked on a small animal skull, carved with the same symbols as the stake, murmuring, "Someone worshipped something in these woods." Sam's flashlight revealed scraps of fabric and tangled hair entwined among the bones, his voice breaking. "We need to leave now." The narrator describes the shrine's grotesque geometry, branches bending under the weight of mangled relics, and how a distant raven's caw cracked the hush. A sudden gust rattled the hanging bones, as if in applause, and the forest floor suddenly felt alive, throbbing with unspoken malice. The friends exchanged panicked glances, footsteps retreating as the wind carried an uncanny chant that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Adrenaline propelling them forward, Anna spun on her heel, breath ragged. "Back to camp, now!" They sprinted through brambled paths, branches snagging jackets as dawn's gray light intensified. When they burst into the clearing, Marcus's voice cracked. "Anna's pack, her backpack's gone." Lila pointed to a lone strap dangling from a low branch, fabric torn and stained, whispering, "Someone took it." Sam dropped to his knees, fingers tracing her name tag still pinned inside the pack's remains. Voice hollow as he said, "She wouldn't leave without it." The narrator notes how the campsite lay empty save for their trembling shadows, tents flapping from gusts of wind that carried faint laughter. Marcus kicked at scattered gear, shouting, "Anna!" Their voices echoed futilely, swallowed by the pines. Above them the canopy shifted as if closing ranks, and unseen eyes glinted between trunks. In that breathless moment, the forest claimed its first victim, leaving only emptiness and the silent promise of more horrors to come. At first light, Sam's flashlight beam danced across mud-slick leaves as he stumbled into a shallow hollow, voice hoarse as he called, "Anna?" Layla pressed a trembling hand against damp bark, replying, "The trail goes this way." Marcus scanned the undergrowth, voice grim, saying, "There's her jacket." Beneath twisted brambles lay the torn sleeve of Anna's flannel, smeared with dark red that glistened in the pre-dawn gloom. The narrator notes how the forest exhaled a low groan as they gathered around that solitary fragment, each heartbeat thudding against ragged breath. Sam knelt, voice cracking, "She must have been dragged." The flashlight's arc revealed crushed ferns forming a broken path deeper into the pines, disappearing behind a moss-covered boulder. Lila swallowed hard, voice tremulous, "We need to go after her." Anna's absence pressed on them like a suffocating weight, their fear coalescing into a singular purpose. The forest seemed to watch with silent hunger as resolve and dread fused in their eyes, propelling them into unknown darkness. Deeper in the gloom they emerged into a wind-swept clearing ringed by skeletal birches, where a crude cairn stood atop a mossy stump. Layla gasped, voice trembling, "That hair, the same color as Anna's." A lock of auburn strands wound in fraying twine trailed like a silent scream around the stones. Marcus knelt, voice hollow as thunder, "This is sick." The narrator describes how dew-laden grasses bowed under the weight of the ritual relic, and how a distant woodpecker's rhythmic rap sounded like a heartbeat gone wrong. Sam trained the flashlight on stained feathers pinned beneath the cairn, hushed as he said, "It wasn't animals. Someone did this." Shadows cast by the birches stretched like reaching hands as the wind carried a hollow, childlike lullaby. Their breaths came in ragged rhythm as they realized the path to rescue was also a descent into madness, each step closer binding them to the forest's brutal design. Stumbling through bramble-laced trails that clawed at their legs, they found a rotting wooden cabin half hidden by thorny vines. Marcus rapped a trembling fist against warped planks, voice echoing, "Hello? Anna?" The narrator described splintered wood, revealing life once lived. A broken rocking chair, a hearth cold and caked in ash. Lila let out a shaky laugh, whispering,